You have had the experience of doing some routine house cleaning at home and discovering something very unusual in the process. Let me tell you what happened to me. Last summer, one evening, I was rummaging around in the attic over my upstairs bedroom when I came across a dusty old envelope that I'd never seen before. On one side it said Burpee's seeds. On the other side it said beans. I thought, hey, that's great. I'll take it down and plant it in my garden. So I went down and out, and I was working in my garden. My neighbor came by and said, that's a cheerful thing to do when you're down and out. So I kept working on it. I watered it. I went back in the house. The next morning when I came out, not only had it sprouted, it was over a foot tall. I said, wow, that's an amazing plant. And when I came home from work that day, it was over 7 feet tall. Amazing. And that's the way it was throughout the whole week. Every time I saw the plant, it had grown incredibly taller. By Saturday morning, it was scraping the sky. And I thought, what am I going to do with this? I went in the house and I was thinking, and I heard on the radio an old Perry Como song. He was singing, catch a falling star and put it in your pocket, never let it fade away. And I said, that's it, that's what I'll do. I don't have to wait for a star to fall. I'll climb up the beanstalk and grab one right out of the sky. So I began climbing up the beanstalk. I approached the beanstalk. I just was on the very first leaf, and my neighbor came by and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm climbing this beanstalk. He said, what do you know about climbing beanstalks? And I said, I know everything there is to know and everyone there is to know about climbing beanstalks. He looked at me and he said, you don't know Jack. So I climbed step after step, stem after stem, and leaf after leaf. I climbed the whole day, and every time I looked down, the earth was getting farther and farther away. I got up close to the sky, and I was so tired I had to stretch out and sleep. I curled up on a leaf, and the next morning I woke up, and I looked down, and the earth was so far below me that I could see the curvature of the earth. But I thought, I'm now in a position to grab a star. But it was daytime. There weren't any stars, so I thought, I'll grab a piece of the sun. And I reached out, and I could just barely get to the, not quite, but I grabbed a spark. And just like in the song, I put it in my pocket. And I thought, how am I going to get home? I started climbing down, but the beanstalk was growing faster than I could descend it. So I tore off a leaf and I held it over my head like a parachute. And I jumped and I held it and I went whirling all over to and fro, and I was getting farther and farther from my house. And the ground was coming up quickly, so I stretched out the leaf and I slowed down and I landed gently on the road. And I began walking along this road, and a young lady approached me coming from the other direction. And I said, Miss, could we travel together? Well, she looked at me and said, oh, another stalker. And I kept on going. And then an old man passed me coming from the other direction, and he said, what do you have in your pocket there, my son? I said, yes, that's exactly what I have. And then I saw off to the side of the road this shimmering, glistening warp, a warp in the infinite fabric of time and space. And I thought, I'll try that. Maybe that'll get me home. I stepped through the warp. I began spinning around and round, and I got so dizzy I had to close my eyes. And when I woke up, I was at home. I was sitting in my easy chair in my living room. And I thought, it was just a dream. The whole thing was nothing but a dream. Because if it were real, I'd be able to reach into my pocket and pull out a spark from the sun.